A while ago, I picked up this Commodore 16, and as you can see, it's not in the greatest shape, but it did still have the box. It doesn't even have most of the screws installed, and someone's already desoldered the RF shield. But, oh no, there's no 8501 processor. Can I save this thing? The C16 is part of the Commodore TED line, based around the 8501 or 7501 if you have a first run of them processor, and the 8360 text editor chip or TED chip. This line includes the C16, the Plus 4, and the 264. These were aimed at business users, not home computer game playing users like the Commodore 64 was. So they lack a lot of functionality, but they have a lot of other functionality, which makes them kind of interesting, and I really like them. As well as missing the CPU, there's only 2 screws holding the board down, so whoever had this before me either bought it to use it as a parts machine or just didn't care about it. A normal human being would have said, hey, let's fold these tabs over, and between that and screwing this board into the bottom of the case, this thing will never move, right? That person would never get a job at Commodore who says, no, we also have to solder it to the ground plane so that no one ever takes it off again. Oh good, 1 down, just 6 more to go.
Not my finest hour, but it worked. There's something on that side, so I might be able to pull this now. And so there's a non-conductive paper lining here, so if you put this back on, you have to put the non-conductive paper back in. Okay, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think it should be 9 electrolytic caps. Yeah, the old caps. Nothing really wrong with them. Just old.
But we're going to replace them with these new ones. Since this machine has no processor, but it shares architecture with the Plus 4, I went and took the 8501 out of my Plus 4 to do some testing. I have a solution for this on the way, but that'll be another video.
I rearranged my office a little bit. As far as I can tell, the recap went fine, but since I don't know what state this was in before I started,
Not having any idea where to start, I just dug out the oscilloscope and started poking around at pins on the CPU. Very quickly, I found that while the reset line worked just fine, a number of the data lines had weird sawtooth patterns and never quite got all the way to 5 volts, which led me to believe that there was a problem with one of the logic chips. I knew the CPU was just fine because it was running my Plus 4, and I know my Plus 4 works and a lot of these chips are interchangeable. So I pulled out the Plus 4 and hooked it up and started using it to check each individual chip since everything was socketed. And if a chip worked in the Plus 4, Then I can mark it as good, move it back over to the 16, and go back and forth. Not having another 16, I couldn't do a 1-for-1 swap, but it was good enough. I started by marking each chip that I knew was good in the +4, so that as I tested the ones from the C16, I would know which chips were good and if any of them were bad. Turns out all the socketed chips are good. And that's the part to keep in mind as we move forward. All of the socketed chips are good. So, time to start looking at something else. So I turned my attention to the output, figuring maybe there was something wrong there. And the timing between the +4 in blue and the C16 in yellow are ever so slightly different, but not enough to be problematic. But that did lead me down the rabbit hole of trying to use the timing adjustment pot to get everything in sync, and I never really quite got there. Also turns out it was just the wrong idea, and I probably shouldn't have taken an entire night working on that. Next, I thought the RAM was bad, so I pulled it out and changed it out, put sockets in. That didn't make a difference. So I started looking at the diagram out of the service manual, and much to my confusion, there was just this little note about a 74LS02 that I didn't see anywhere on the board. It's in U12, and when I looked at U12, I saw an MOS branded chip, and I just kind of went, I bet you that's what failed, because the MOS logic chips just aren't very good. And sure enough, a quick look up, and the chip number that was on there is exactly a 74LS02 in an MOS package.
So replace that after I place the RAM, and sure enough, it works. So it was a bad 74LS02 chip, which I've replaced with the 74HCT02 because I didn't have any LSs in stock, but should work just fine.
So I'm going to let the diagnostic run for a while. It takes a little bit over a minute for each cycle. It will skip the function low, function high ROMs because those are only in the +4, but it uses the same diagnostic program. It's going to tell me my keyboard's bad, my cassette's bad, my serial port's bad, my joysticks are bad. The keyboard is fine, I just don't feel like pressing the keys. The joysticks I don't have any to plug in because it's a special port, and I don't have anything hooked up to the cassette or serial port, and I don't have a loop back for this yet. Everything else should be just fine. It does do some advanced tests, which I'm also not going to do. At least not right now. If it can get through this, I am happy. It is a working C16 again. And that's all I was really going for today. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, go ahead and press that subscribe button in the center of the screen. I've also got a couple other videos I think you might enjoy.